who starts, who sits, and how to become the greatest of all time. This is the Fantasy G.O.A.T.
Welcome to the Fantasy G.O.A.T. That's Jason Feinberg. I'm Mariah Janos in for Mike Davis because he's too busy kissing girls to take care of his health these days. I don't know.
That mistletoe, he gets into it a little too early.
I know. He just loves the holiday season. And you know, the holidays, they always get a little more interesting when they fall in line with fantasy football semifinals. And here on the G.O.A.T., our job is to gift you a path to your league's championship. Jason, how's your squad doing? Did they make the semifinals?
They did not because of, thank you, Cooper Kupp. Thank you, Saquon Barkley, who I can't complain too much because he got me to the playoffs. And I did take a big risk with Jameis Winston. My other choice was Jordan Love. We already know what we're getting with Jordan Love. He hands the ball off to Jacobs.
Right.
I blew it, but I'm happy with my roster. I don't regret my roster.
Yeah, you know, Jameis Winston, great personality.
He loves.
Great morale guy.
I mean, yeah. He's got God on his side.
He's got, well, not from those pick sixes. Remember,
that's
he was
true.
asking the Lord to deliver him from those pick sixes. So that didn't really work out. But here's a look at what's coming up on the show today. We're starting off with a little friendly competition between Jason and the Fat Jack. Which players will go over or under their projected points. Plus, Dr. Nithin Natwa is back to give us some injury updates. And Ian Ritchie from Full Time Fantasy will be hopping on to give us the scoop on which players are primed for the playoffs. All right, so let's begin with a little over-under. We're joined by the Fat Jack.
I was going to make a big entrance.
You can.
Flying
You just did.
in, so.
There it is. There he is, just dropping in. All right, guys, let's begin with the big one. A guy who has dragged many teams to the playoffs and beyond, wide receiver one on the season, Cincinnati's Jamar Chase. He's projected for 18.3 half PPR fantasy points this weekend against Cleveland. Jason, are you going with the over or under for Chase?
You know, Cincinnati still has something to play for. It's slight, and they're going up against Cleveland. Normally you would think, okay, it's a divisional battle, so they are going to play each other tight. But I think in this one, I really give the hand to Cincinnati, and the way Cincinnati's going to crush is with Jamar Chase. I'm going over.
Yeah, Cincinnati's playing for their parents and their kids and just pride because they're not going anywhere. And this is one of those games, you know, last time they played, low scoring, not a lot of points. Cincinnati's made it a priority to get Chase the ball, but I think everybody knows that with Cleveland. I think they're going to make that a priority to stop that, especially with their lack of pass rush. They need to make sure that they're getting double teaming those outside receivers. I'm going to go under 18.5. I don't think he has a great game.
All right, I love a little split decision.
Sure.
Next up, we got Green Bay running back Josh Jacobs having an incredible season out there with the Cheeseheads. Another guy on many fantasy playoff rosters. He's projected for 21.8 fantasy points against New Orleans. Jack, over or under this number?
Yeah, Jacobs, Green Bay, you're exactly right. They're going to hand the ball off. They want to run play action off of that. That's really where they're at their best. We've seen when Love has to stand back in the shotgun versus the number and in fantasy, they're not near as effective offensively. So handing the ball off, establishing run, and then their offense runs off of that. They had 30 last week. Green Bay did. I think that they're able to move the ball down the field by running the ball, get that play action. We're going over 21.5. I think he's a good player this week.
Jason?
So they're also favored by 14 points against New Orleans. So I agree with Jack that they are going to be handing the ball off. Here's what I think might happen, though, is Josh Jacobs kills it in the first half. They get such a big lead that they bring in Wilson or one of their Brooks or one of their other guys, and so they're going to take some of those fantasy points away.
If you lose in the semifinals because they're taking players out because they're so far ahead, I'm going to be throwing something. I don't want to get this far and then, we're not going to play the second half because New Orleans can't stop the run. Let's put the backups in. No good.
Jacobs won't. He will try not to allow it because he wants to play.
Yeah,
for sure. So it will be up to the coaches.
So Jack's already mad about this. All right, really quick, Jalen Hurts. 23.9 over-under, quick over-under. Let's go.
All right, he's going to go under because this is going to be a Saquon Barkley game because I'm out now with Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
Now he's going to go off.
Okay.
He's going under because you're a Saquon Barkley guy, and it's going to go off now that he's under. Let's go under as well with his regression off the great offensive performance last week out of Philadelphia.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jack.
So fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Merry Christmas. We love having you on here. It's the best present we can ask for.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, don't go anywhere because when we come back, we're going out to our favorite doctor at Fantasy Docs on social media, Dr. Nithin Natwa. He's talking the Mahomes and Kamara injuries and what to expect if they're in your lineup this weekend. All right, welcome back. Dr. Nithin Natwa is with us to break down the latest injury news. Good to see you, Doc. All right, let's start with a player that was off to a hot start through the first 6 weeks, but has since then dropped off a little bit, and now he's dealing with a groin injury suffered against Washington. Running back Alvin Kamara, what do you make of this injury?
Yeah, so typically with these groin strains, with the adductor muscles, you can play through them, but with the Saints season pretty much not really going anywhere, I don't think that Kamara is going to try and play through it. They actually signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so it seems like they're planning on him not suiting up this coming week. Kendre Miller seems like he'd be a great viable alternative, especially with how many injuries have been out there so far.
All right, good to know. Also, Doc, Patrick Mahomes, okay, so believed to have suffered a high ankle sprain, but he's practicing in full. Other than some sort of, he's a tough guy. So other than a real big setback, it looks like he's going to play. But what is it like to play on a high ankle sprain? And, will that do anything to his core?
So the good thing is that Mahomes has got great arm strength, so I don't think that it's really going to affect him too much. He's more of a pocket passer, although we have seen him run. I don't think that we're going to really have to worry about him really throwing up a huge rushing game. So he should be a viable quarterback to play. I know some people have been asking between Murray or Mahomes who they would start. I would start Mahomes. I think he's in playoff mode right now. It is kind of crazy to me that he's playing through this high ankle sprain because that's pretty much one of the injuries you're not supposed to play through, but he's done it before in the past for the previous Super Bowl, and he's done pretty well in those performances. So I'm not benching Mahomes.
Yeah, and also looks like one of his weapons who's been on IR since the first preseason game, Hollywood Brown's going to be coming back, so he'll have another weapon as well that will help him out so he doesn't have to run as much probably.
Just what Casey needs. All right, and last but certainly not least, Pittsburgh receiver George Pickens suffered a grade 2 hamstring strain. What does that mean? How long does it typically take to bounce back from something like that?
So hamstring strains, I think I talked about them ad nauseum, and they take about 3 to 4 weeks typically to return from. But the thing is, they've shown videos of Pickens running sprints this entire week, but I think they just ruled him out for this upcoming weekend. So he's not going to play this upcoming weekend. You got to look for an alternative. He does seem like he's very close to returning, though.
And Njoku has the same injury. Would you evaluate it kind of the same way?
Yeah, him even more so because the Browns season isn't really going anywhere, unfortunately. Yeah. So I think that he's also going to be sitting this upcoming weekend.
All right, Doc, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Great things to keep in mind if you have any of those players in your lineup heading into the weekend. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, Jason, couple big questions for you
in
livestock. First, what is the stock of Atlanta's playmakers, guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, now that the rookie Michael Penix Jr. will get the start?
Well, I don't think it can get worse than Cousins in the last 4 weeks. So I think it's fine, and I think it's better than a lot of the teams like the doc was just saying Cleveland. I think I'd rather have Penix and his wide receivers than a team like Cleveland or even Tennessee, which is also going with a completely different quarterback. So I would say if you have somebody, basically if you got somebody better, play them. If you don't, roll with them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it can really get much worse, especially what we saw even here in Las Vegas. Yes, Atlanta got the win, but it was a lousy win. It was really tough to watch. Really the least thrilling Monday night I've had in a while. And also, let's move on to Mahomes, struggling with that ankle injury like we just talked with the doc about. He was a full participant in practice Wednesday, like you mentioned, so it's looking like he'll be good to go against Houston. But what do we make of guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce? If he is hobbled, are they going to be picking up the slack, do you think?
I mean, I think it's still going to, I think now's the time to start getting Isaiah Pacheco involved a little bit more. He still hasn't really gotten to be 100%, nor has he gotten a lot of the, all the carries since he's still sharing it with Hunt. So I think it just, that said, and the fact that I think they have a couple games in a short period of time. It could be more of a running game, but I do think, like the doc said, he's got good upper body strength, so I think he will get it to those wide receivers. And then, like I mentioned, I think Hollywood Brown, he's practicing in full as well. I don't know if that's he may downgrade those other guys more than Mahomes might, being a whole new weapon.
Yeah, I'm with you on Isaiah Pacheco. Get those angry runs going because, like you mentioned, that shortened schedule. They play Saturday and then they play Christmas Day on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's shorter than, if you're playing like Thursday night and then you have another shorter week. It's really a tight window. I don't know if I'd risk it. I'm no doctor, and I'm also not Andy Reid, so who am I to say anything? But and maybe it's just I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes play, but that's just where I'm coming from. So we'll see how all of that unfolds in the days to come. But still to come, we've got the fantasy football expert, Ian Ritchie from Full Time Fantasy, joining the show with players expected to boost your playoff performance.
See, like in a curl, like a rip curl?
Yeah, he's riding the wave, man. Welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. We're joined now by Ian Ritchie of Full Time Fantasy, here to help us out with some last-minute waiver ads.
Yeah.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, hard to believe that we're still picking up good players. So yeah, Ian, thanks for being here. So let's start with a guy that you like in Cleveland. We drafted him, then we all dumped him, and now we want him back. We're talking about running back Jerome Ford.
Well, I like Jerome Ford a lot because Nick Chubb's going on the IR, and Cleveland has a quarterback change. Jameis Winston's now on the bench, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson is taking over. Winston's kind of a gunslinger, likes to throw the ball a lot. Thompson-Robinson under center, they're going to run the ball quite a bit more. And with Chubb on the IR, I expect Ford to get a lot of carries and a lot of volume. We have him projected for 13.6 points this week in a PPR league. And if you're going to the playoffs and you need a flex player or another running back, 13.6 points is really strong. He had a great year last year between weeks 3 and 17 when Chubb was hurt. He averaged 12.9 points and was one of the top 25 running backs in the league. So you could do a lot worse than Jerome Ford in your lineup going into the playoffs, especially with all the injuries going on. And if he comes through for you, he should get in the 20s if he has a touchdown.
All right, next up, we've talked about Alvin Kamara a bit on this show already with his groin injury and him being sidelined. But we have a guy that could potentially have a big opportunity here with Kamara sidelines in New Orleans. Our running back, Kay Miller. What do we think about him?
Kendre Miller is a great back, and in dynasty circles, he has had a lot of buzz for a long time. Last year, he really came on the last game when Kamara was hurt, and New Orleans really needed him to step up. And he ended up with 18 points. He had a great game. He was 13 for 73 yards with a touchdown. And going into the offseason, there was a lot of hype about Kendre Miller. They signed Jamal Williams in there to be another back, maybe a goal line back. But going into the season, I think everybody thought Kendre Miller would be the number 2 running back there. In training camp on the first day, he had a hamstring injury, put him out for 3 months. And it was a really big setback for him. And he lost the trust of Dennis Allen, who was the head coach at the time. Once Allen was fired and Darren Rizzi became the interim coach in New Orleans, Kendre Miller kind of got out of the doghouse a little bit. He's ready to roll. He's coming out this week. He knows he's out of the doghouse, and his quote is, "I'm ready to bark." And when you have a dog who's ready to bark and he's going to get all the carries, you can expect him to come in and really make a place for himself. He wants to cement himself going into next season, number 2 back, and this is a really big opportunity, especially if Kamara misses. If Kamara misses this game, Kendre Miller has a huge opportunity to have a big game because he's a very, very explosive player. And if you have an opportunity to pick him up, I believe he's only rostered in 18% of leagues, in ESPN leagues. He's an opportunity. He's on the wire for you. I would grab him immediately.
Yeah, the small sample size that I've seen with Kendre Miller has been really impressive, so I agree. All right, Ian, finally, tight end gaining some momentum down in Jacksonville with quarterback Mac Jones. Who are we talking about?
Brenton Strange is an interesting player. He's young. He's in the second year out of Penn State. And Mac Jones just seems to really like him. Last game, he had 12 targets. He had 11 catches for 73 yards. It's a real opportunity with Evan Ingram being out. And all of a sudden, they're missing a lot of their weapons. And so, again, he could be a guy that's not the most exciting player in the world. But the tight end position this season for fantasy has been very difficult. There's been a lot of underachievers. And if you can pick up a guy right now who's going to get 10, 12, 9 targets on the waiver wire for a tight end heading into your playoffs, it's a potential gold mine for you. Mac Jones obviously comfortable throwing to him. So I would be very, very interested in picking up Brenton Strange from Jacksonville if I needed a tight end this week.
Yeah, tight ends have been an absolute killer this season. Hate it. All right, thank you, Ian. Always appreciate your expertise. Go follow Full Time Fantasy on social media. Now let's send it over to Sam.
And Mariah, we've got a lot of weather to talk about for this weekend because the games are kicking off on Saturday. We'll be in the 30s in Kansas City and Baltimore with dry weather, but things pick up on Sunday in the weather department. We'll track the coldest games, the wettest game, and even where some snow is possible, all coming up in your GOATcast.
All right, welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. We are now talking potential weather impacting games that might make you rethink starting someone in your lineup.
Yeah, seriously, that's right. Our guy, meteorologist Sam Argier, is here to break it all down for us. What's going on around the country, Sam?
Well, Mariah, Jason, a lot of weather to actually talk about this week 16. We've got some very cold games. We've got one game that will be very rainy and even some snowflakes possible. So let's dive into that week 16 GOATcast. A lot of games will be below freezing. Now, it's late December. Not a total surprise there, but we got some cold games on Sunday. The coldest game will be in Buffalo. Now, the wettest game, again, not a big surprise here, but Seattle. It's going to be a soaking rain as Minnesota comes to town. And then a snow chance Monday night in Green Bay. Now, looking at the latest data, a lot of the snow looking to move out just before the game, but still close enough. We could see a little snow linger on Monday night. Now, let's take you to the full map. Now, this is Saturday because we do have two games on Saturday, Kansas City and in Baltimore. Temperatures will be in the 30s as we get those games going. A little breezy in Baltimore as they take on Pittsburgh, but both games will be dry. That later game in Baltimore will be in the 20s as things wrap up. So we'll be dipping below freezing. But this is the Sunday late morning, early afternoon time slot, depending on your time zone. We've got 30s and 20s. So some cold weather in New York as LA comes to town in the 20s. Carolina even cold at 36. 32 in Chicago with 30 in Cincinnati. 26 in Washington, D.C. All those games will be dry. Now, this is where we see a lot of the extremes. This will be the late Sunday afternoon, early evening games. Now, Seattle, all that green. That's that steady rain I was talking about when Minnesota comes to town at 47. Miami's still fairly balmy at 69. And then look at Buffalo, 13 degrees as they take on New England. And then the Sunday night game indoors in Dallas at 50 degrees. So no worries about the weather there. And then here's that snow chance I was talking about in Green Bay. You can see the colors of blue. That's the snow. Some of the latest data we're looking at hinting at some of that snow moving off to the east by the time the game does start on Monday night. But still very close. It's still going to be cold. And which is to be expected in Green Bay. But Buffalo, I mean, they dealt with all that snow a few weeks ago. This weekend, it's just going to be, I mean, you get below 20 degrees, players are going to be feeling it.
Oh, yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, and it's wild because I'm from the Northeast, and it wasn't until you pulled this map up that I completely forgot how cold it gets. Because I've been living out here in Vegas, and then prior to that I was in Florida. So I completely forgot about the 20-degree temperatures. I always thought, no, it doesn't get that cold. I breathe through it. But I think just the blood has thinned out.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, you're a total wimp now.
Yeah. Oh, I can't handle it.
It spoils you out here. It really does. I was in Seattle over the weekend last weekend. I felt the cold. I was at the Green Bay game.
Oh, wow.
Not the best for Seattle fans. Green Bay was looking really good.
Yeah, it looked really good.
But kind of happy I'm not going there because it's going to be a steady rain when Minnesota comes to town this weekend.
Good for you for going to Lambeau, first of all. That is like a bucket list football dream.
Well, actually, the other.
Oh, it was in Seattle. Got it. Okay,
I do want to go to Lambeau.
Yeah, no, Lambeau's good.
Lambeau looks great. You'll have to bundle up. That one's for sure with that too.
Yeah.
Have either of you been to Arrowhead?
Yes.
I'm not.
How was that?
Loud.
Loud.
It was loud. This was back before Mahomes, though, when I went. It was.
So
I think
it's not as cool.
I want to say it was Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. Actually, Los Angeles actually kicked their butt. But that was back in the day.
I thought you were going to say Joe Montana for a second. I love that late stretch Joe Montana did in Kansas City before he hung it up. But
well, I wish I was here last week. I was out of the country, so I didn't get your weathercast, your GOATcast, and because of it, I was like, game came on at 10:15 at night in Argentina, the Thursday night game, right, with San Francisco. And I was like, okay, time to look at all my players that are doing well. This is awesome. I'm going to get off to I've got great players going tonight. 3-0 first quarter, 3-0 second quarter. Like, oh my God. So that was it. So I didn't know. I didn't know it was going to be raining so bad.
It was a rough one. It was a wet one. Maybe they'll have a better week this time around. But I don't know. I'm just trying to be a little optimistic for you. All right, Sam. Thank you so much to fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was great. Don't go anywhere. The final week of the GOAT lineup is coming up next.
This is the Fantasy GOAT.
All right, it's about that time. Let's do the GOAT lineup. Jason, as the reigning GOAT, you must be sweating. Mike is 7-5. You're 5-7.
Right.
But before we get into your lineups, let me quickly explain how this works. And before you get to your grievances, because I know you have some. Here's how the lineup works, the GOAT lineup works. For all of you who are unfamiliar, each week Jason and Mike face off head-to-head in standard scoring by selecting one quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, and lastly, one tight end. Here's the catch. You can only use a player one time all season, so it's kind of like a survivor-style situation. And last year, Jason was the GOAT. So you have a majestic, beautiful GOAT trophy.
I do.
You do.
Yeah.
We don't have it here with us, unfortunately, but that's okay.
Well, here's the thing. We all did the math, and we all, we're in television for a reason. So the math, it wasn't so good. It wasn't so good. So basically,
math ain't math.
He clinched because, but I don't know why. Because we're only on the 13th contest. And there's, if I remember correctly, 18 weeks in the season. But for this reason, or for that reason, or for this reason, or Mike is sick, or too much mistletoe, I think I'm out. I think I'm mathematically out. But I'm going to get him this week. I don't care. I'm going out strong. I saved my great players, so I got Lamar Jackson, right? Big time for Baltimore. Jahmyr Gibbs, he doesn't have Montgomery anymore for Detroit. Brian Thomas Jr., he's been killing it for Jacksonville. And Trey McBride for Arizona, he's going to get his touchdown.
All right, and on behalf of Mike Davis, I will present his lineup. He's got Kyler Murray, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, and Trey McBride. So there are the two lineups going head-to-head. It's going to be an exciting week. Thank you so much for joining us. Merry Christmas.
See ya.